Hey there, my lovely. If you hate interviews or you get really nervous or hate presenting ideas to a group of people, like public speaking, the public speaking thing can even be, just to a small group of people. If that sends you into meltdown, then chances are you're suffering from imposter syndrome. Let me explain why I make these claims and we'll unpack why it is. So today I'm going to go through the five surefire signs that you're suffering from imposter syndrome and why people fear death less than public speaking, the real consequences, dollar value consequences of imposter syndrome, and how to apply a brain hack that will have you moving from imposter syndrome to the more confident you in less than a 5-minute practice. For those that don't know me, I'm Sue-Ann Higgins, and I help exhausted women leaders expand their influence and impact with less effort and in less time. So this is for you if you find yourself waking up in the middle of the night and your mind's full of your mind's racing and you find it hard to get back to sleep, or you find yourself working more than 3 or 4 times late, working back late 3 or 4 times in a week or a given fortnight. And also this is for you if you have ongoing people issues, and it's typically with the same people and the reoccurring issues that just don't go away. And this is what's leading you to exhaustion. So in this strategy that I'm going to share today, it's going to energize you, hopefully help you feel more less exhausted and have a strategy that you can walk away with, a practical strategy that you can apply straight away and start taking control back of your leadership journey. So, in the beginning, I've talked about how if you fear public speaking or speaking to small groups of people, or you really hate interviews, that's a sign that you're probably suffering from imposter syndrome. But let me unpack a little bit more about what that fear actually is. And I've got 5 more signs that you're suffering from imposter syndrome. See, imposter syndrome is typically known or referred to as you're not the technical expert, you don't know enough. And that's the thing that's holding you back from speaking to other people, because you're worried they're going to find out that you don't know as much as you think you know. Or you may also be fear public speaking because you don't like to be in the spotlight. In actual fact, the thing that that's more of an issue in people is the fear of rejection, the fear of judgment. In fact, I think it was about 2008, there was a research done in terms of people that feared public speaking versus the people that feared death, and 78% of people feared public speaking more than they feared death. And in that public speaking domain, if you don't like interviews or you don't like speaking to a group of people, again, it's that fear of rejection that is actually driving you. So your brain wants to keep you safe, and the minute that you think that you might be judged or people might think that you're not good enough, it does trigger you into that try harder cycle of imposter syndrome. But there's 5 other signs that you can look out for that will indicate that you're possibly suffering from in the try harder trap of imposter syndrome as well. The first one is you're working harder and longer than anyone else. So that's the first sign. Working harder and longer than anyone else. And what's often driving that need to work harder and longer than anyone else is the need to prove yourself. And this may be a subconscious trigger. You may not even be aware of it. But that drive to work harder and longer is to make sure that you prove yourself not only to you, but to the people around you. The second sign is that you may beat yourself up if you didn't know something or you don't know something. So, damn it, I should have known that. That's another sign that behind the scenes there's some residual imposter syndrome sitting there. The third sign is the fear of stuffing up. Now, we all fear stuffing up at some point in time. I mean, just an example, this Facebook Live, I sometimes think, oh, what if I say the wrong thing, or I say the wrong word, or I trigger people? That's the fear of stuffing up. In actual fact, the fear of stuffing up is really just the fear that you're going to be judged or rejected for the thing that you didn't do. The others, fourth sign of imposter syndrome is wondering when people are going to realise you're not as smart as they think you are. And this one is a goodie, and the fifth one is often a little bit more covert, and that is perfectionism. So if you're striving for perfectionism all the time, it could be driven is most likely driven by imposter syndrome or the fear of feeling like you're not good enough. So what is the real consequences? I mean dollar value consequences of imposter syndrome and self-doubt of feeling not good enough. Out of all the women that I coached, around 76% of them at some point in time tell themselves that narrative that I'm not good enough, I don't know enough, which is imposter syndrome, or I'm not giving enough. And when you start noticing the thoughts, because often these are a habit that is put on autopilot and you don't even notice this internal story that you've been telling yourself, when they start noticing it and starting to take more control of their thoughts, then they find themselves actually being able to take action and play a bigger game, a leadership role. So the 80% of the women that I work with, when they come to me, initially they're feeling that exhausted leader. But then eventually when we start unpacking all the shitty things that they've been telling themselves, including imposter syndrome, it becomes really evident that this has been holding them back from getting that dream job, or from getting that board position, or in the not-for-profit kind of sector, or getting on, the parent-teacher committee. It's that whole fear of, I don't know enough to be to go for that position, that better leadership position, or be a bigger leader within the community. And it's that is the real dollar value consequence if you keep playing small and keep living that lie that you keep telling yourself that you're an imposter, you don't know enough, you're not good enough. It prevents you from getting expanding your impact and influence by getting a job that's in a higher paid position or a better industry that you may be interested in, or even, as I said, out in the community. So the real dollar value is you're sacrificing your career and going up the leadership ladder by continuing on this thinking. Now, of all the women that I've worked with on this particular kind of thinking and helping them really reconstruct those crappy thoughts so that they're having a more positive thought around their abilities, 80% of them, the women that I work with, move into either a position that is more closely aligned to their values, or they take a step up in the leadership ladder or get the board position that they've been looking for. So 80% of them make that shift by this one thing. And that turns into real dollar values by having better career prospects, but also it turns into really adding a more enriched life, because in the case where they're going to an organisation that's more aligned to their values, or they're getting that board position, becoming a leader within the community, it's more fulfilling and there's more potential to leave a legacy behind that you're proud of. So that's the real consequence of living with the fear of imposter syndrome and not enough trifectas, not good enough, don't know enough, not giving enough. So how can we shift our thinking so that we no longer suffer from imposter syndrome? Depending on how long you've sat in this fear, and it may be an unrecognised fear, will depend on how long it takes for you to create new neural pathways to a more positive result. But the first thing that I encourage you to do is, firstly, when you feel those thoughts coming up that I'm not good enough or I don't know enough, write down on a piece of paper all the achievements and the career highlights that you have achieved, and focus on that. When you think more about your achievements rather than reading them over and over again is a really good way of doing that. Writing down your achievements, it will surprise you on how much you really do know, and that will help you when you feel that imposter syndrome come up. You can go back and look at it. In fact, a few Facebook Lives ago, I shared with you a step I shared with you an actual process that only takes 5 minutes a day, and you get out a book and you write that just for 5 minutes, all the achievements, all the things that you're proud of, and do that consecutively for 10 days. And by the end of that 10 days, you've got at least 50 achievements that you're proud of. And the minute that you have that old story come back in, that you're not good enough, you don't know enough, or that you're an imposter, reading that list will truly, truly help. So that's a brain hack that will be less than 5 minutes, and it will have you speaking like a pro. Some final thoughts on this in terms of if you are going into interviews or public speaking, and a lot of the women that I've worked with, it's not even those big public speaking forums that they feel a threat at. It can even be a meeting with 4 or 5 people in it. A final thought I want to leave with you on that is from a CEO I worked with, and he said to me, I was saying how all the women in his particular organisation are amazed at his style and the way that he presents, and it comes so easily to them, and they actually admired that in this CEO. And I was talking to him about that, and he said, you know what, I hate public speaking even to this day. And he had been the CEO, in senior leadership positions for a number of years by this time. And he said, I hate public speaking and I still get nervous. But you know what? It just takes courage doing that one thing, saying, like talking to that group of people, and just keep going, because you have courage first and confidence comes next. So I really hope that you have the courage to do the exercise that I said. Write out the 5 things that you're proud of, that you want to acknowledge yourself for, the achievements within your career. Do that for 10 days. It's a 5-minute exercise. You'll have a nice bank of achievements that you can reflect on. That will give you the courage to step into that interview or that meeting when you have a number of people, or that moment where you feel like you're an imposter. And once and for all, you'll create a new neural pathway over time that says you actually are good enough and you know your stuff. If you want to have some help with a particular dilemma that you're facing right now, it might be around imposter syndrome or the shitty things that you've been telling yourself lately, and you really feel it's holding you back in your leadership journey, please do book a call with me. The link's in the comments, and we can have a 45-minute leadership strategy session that's unique to you, all complimentary, so that you can be on your way in taking that next step forward and be crystal clear on exactly what to do next. Bye for now.